A very pleasant Monday morning to you. Welcome into the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. It is great to have you along, as I will be with you until 1 o'clock. Again, our new time, 11 to 1, Monday through Friday. You can find us, same place you've always found us, on Twitter, streaming live Monday through Friday, again, 11 to 1, at Chico Show CLE. You can also find us on YouTube at Chico Bormann Show. I should say just type in the Chico Bormann Show, hit subscribe, and you'll be all set to go. All right, a lot to get to, a lot of baseball to get to. Michael Bohm is here, Mr. Bombastic. Bohm, did you have a good weekend? I'm guessing that you were rocking and rolling in your basement till 5 o'clock in the morning, and that's fun.
I would say that is fair and not foul. But also, I had a gig this weekend. So I played a show on the West Side on Saturday, and that was a lot of fun.
Was this a surprise gig?
I was asked to play guitar in support of my guy Janari Komet. He's a great rapper here in Cleveland, by the way. Phenomenal talent. He played drums for everyone else that performed at the show. But I filled in for him a few times before. He sang for me for some of my hard rock stuff, and yeah, it was an awesome time.
Where about on the West Side were you, Bohm?
North High Brewery.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
On Vermont Avenue in Ohio City.
Okay. All right.
It was a lot of fun. It was an outdoor gig. It had rained a little bit, but it cleared up right around 7:30, and so we were able to go on, and we had a great show. It was a lot of fun.
So it was that's right, because Saturday late afternoon it did. So it was probably very humid. So you had to be.
It was so humid.
You had to be sweating You had to be sweating up a storm.
You best believe I had my Nirvana Super
you didn't have to plug that just yet, but I mean we will, because we all love.
But I did, but yeah, no, it was I was drenched. It was right off the right off the rip. Yeah.
So you were sweating profusely.
Yes, I was. Yes.
You got to let us know, Bohm, when you have one of these surprise gigs. I mean, because obviously we can't go to Long Island to see you. If we did happen to go to Long Island, we'd probably be not on the list. I could see you big timing us and being like, "I'm sorry, but Mr. Chico, you are not allowed into tonight's show."
I think I tweeted about it.
Oh, I didn't really. I don't know. I after Twitter and the Threads thing.
Have you gotten into Threads yet?
No, I didn't even attempt it. I didn't even attempt it. Now, I understand Padone mentioned a few times this weekend, that his Instagram shut down, which
really?
For somebody like Padone, that is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a social media manager here at Big Play or whatever. And
he would be a social media manager even if he wasn't.
Yeah.
Like that. He lives on social media. Hopefully he got it back. I think it was the last 2 days it was down. Now, is that because of Threads? I don't know. But I'm just I'm taking my time in terms of this new medium, new form of social media.
That and Wu-Tang, listening to Wu-Tang.
Yes.
You've been putting that off, Chico.
You
don't know where to start.
Well, you know what I wanted to do, and I've been meaning to do this, and I forgot. So I'm actually glad you reminded me. I'm not mad about it. I've been meaning to, on Hulu, look up the Wu-Tang special and put it on my list so I can, watch it, because I heard a couple people have told me that, if you watch that, you'll have a better understanding. And it's still kind of embarrassing that I don't know, but it's, it is what it is.
I think they, I truly believe that they had a massive cultural impact. They changed.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah. So I can only imagine how eye-opening that documentary may be, but I wish I had Hulu. I would have to watch it myself.
I mean, do you know how crazy it was? And I know we've talked about this, but when Christopher Price, and by the way, congratulations to Christopher Price. I'm sure he's tuned in. But he is now on the full-time on the Patriots beat, so we'll be talking to him throughout the season from the Boston Globe. So he was kind of doing a whole bunch of different things, and he's written, books on the Hartford Whalers, but now he's full-time on the Patriots beat. But I just that is to this day one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me on air. Not so much because Christopher Price had a Wu-Tang Forever banner over his shoulder, but like the timing of that. Like, think about it. I mean, I could have said something like, well, I hadn't heard of him, 2-3 years ago, right? But it was just recently, and then I'm just about to have him on, and because it's a video pod and it's not radio, I mean, I did radio for how long? And so it just so happens that here I'm at Big Play, and thankfully for that. And then Price comes on and his video, and I mean, I didn't even see it at first. Like, you were the one pointing at it, and I'm going, that's a sign. That is not just a sign in that it says sign Wu-Tang Forever. It's a sign that, Chico, you really got to get your head out of your rear end every now and then.
That's some universe be universing shit.
It is. It is. You feel better now that you were able to drop that little 4-letter bomb? All right.
Yeah, I suppose I did.
All right, 216-626-7901. Again, 216-626-7901. Coming up at the top of the hour at noon, we will be talking to Justin Lada. A lot to talk with him about lately. Of course, last week we were talking about some of the switches that maybe we'd like to see, or some of the changes in the lineup maybe we'd like to see, who could be going, who could be staying. Well, obviously, yesterday was the MLB draft. It's still going on today. And the Guardians took a catcher. Now, I know some people are going to snicker at that. That's funny. No, they took a catcher. His name is Ralphie. And save all of your, Christmas story jokes. You'll shoot your eye out, kid. I don't even know if he's going to end up at catcher. We'll talk to Justin about this. He's definitely more of the bat catcher than he is the glove catcher, which many people, I think, after seeing Zunino come through here, is probably like, you know what, that's fine. just be able to wield a bat. But, he may end up playing first, DH. It's a long, long way away. And, again, that's something we need to remember about the draft. So we will talk to Justin Lada about that. The Guardians and everyone else has reached the All-Star break. Tonight is the Home Run Derby. Boom. Who you got? Who's your boy? Who's your boy for the Home Run Derby tonight, Boom?
I'm taking Julio. That man
stole mine. I said that last week. Is that why you took him?
No, man. He's fun to watch in the Derby. He hits dingers.
And it's Seattle.
Yeah, the boy can bop.
By the way, Booney's he'll be joining us Wednesday, I think, still from Seattle. Booney's putting all kinds of stuff out there. He's playing in these celebrity softball games and taking pictures. He looks like he's in a GQ shoot. Can't wait to bring him in on Wednesday.
You mentioned Eddie Vedder's from Seattle, but there's a lot more great music than just Pearl Jam in Seattle.
I know, Bohm. I was giving him a recommendation.
Yeah, Eddie would be a great guest, though. You're right.
Pearl Jam is one of my favorites.
I love them. First time I ever got drunk was a Pearl Jam concert, 2010. Memorable experience.
2010 was the first time. I forget. How old were you? 8?
17.
17. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of. I will say this. Now that you got us on that path, and I know you did it purposely. I will say that I think Pearl Jam's 10 album is one of the best ever.
Yes, and I will forever contend that is the greatest debut album of all time.
Ooh, wow,
Appetite for Destruction, I think, is a close second.
Guns N' Roses, yeah.
Yeah, but to me, I mean, the way that album hit me, and just grunge is my era. Like, that's my music. So
I loved Pearl Jam. I mean, I still do. I still do. But yeah, I absolutely, positively loved Pearl Jam. Maybe he will. I mean, with Booney, I think I've got to keep reminding him. It's kind of like me. Like, Chico, you got remember, you got to watch that Wu-Tang. Oh, yeah. So we got to keep reminding him. We'll talk to him on Wednesday, obviously, when he comes on. All right, so everybody's reached. We got the Home Run Derby tonight. We've got the All-Star Game on Tuesday. Guardians will not be back in play until Friday when they take on the Texas Rangers. They've got they immediately begin the second half, if you want to call it the second half, on the road against Texas and against Pittsburgh. Now, the Guardians have a half-game lead in the American League Central. They are an even 45-45. Last year at this time, they were, I think they played 89. They were 45-44. Why, Bohm, do you suppose that this year feels so much different than last year as we hit the All-Star break?
That's a great question, Chico.
I think it's very, very easy to. I think there's a very easy answer to all this.
Oh, is there?
Yes.
Okay, well then I'm missing the obvious here.
Okay,
but
I would say, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I think that some of the rough stretches for this team have felt especially rough.
Okay.
Like this team has been
Fair.
dead cold at points throughout this season that I don't think we experienced last year.
Very good answer. I would say, in one word, expectations. Last year, going into last year, nobody, myself included, did not think the Guardians. I mean, if you would have said to me before last season that the Guardians were going to win 92 games, I would have said, look, I love the Guardians. I love baseball, but you're absolutely smoking something. Like, you're out of your mind. If they're, and I think at the time I said, if they're able to be a 500 club, if they're able to win, say 80 to 82 or 82 to 85, I will be absolutely ecstatic. But the roster was, and still is, by the way, the youngest in baseball, and you just had a lot of question marks. Who was going to be, Stephen Kwan last opening day was not a household name. You were still trying to figure out Oscar Mercado and Bradley Zimmer and, so many other guys that you couldn't really, you didn't have a feel for the club. And because I didn't have a feel for the club, I thought, I'm just not going to expect a whole lot. Well, when you don't expect a whole lot or really anything at all, and then you do win 92 games, and then you do knock off the Tampa Bay Rays in the wild card round, and then you do take the New York Yankees to 5 games in that first playoff round series, all of a sudden, the expectations have gone. I mean, and again, the story is a good one from last year. They not only did it with a bunch of young guys, but, I know it gets said ad nauseum, but it's worth repeating again. 17 dudes made their major league debut. That happens for bottom dwellers who are rebuilding, and that's not what that season ended up being. Now, fast forward to here we are today on Monday, getting ready for the Home Run Derby. The Guardians are an even 45-45. And I think if you were to, I don't even think I have to, but if we were to take a poll on how people, well, whatever. That's kind of how they feel. Part of that is it's just, it's the midway point. You got a lot of baseball left. Part of it is, like last year, I think folks were excited about what they had seen. But then keep in mind, out of the break last year, they went on like a 48-25 run. I mean, they were winning games and winning more games, and then it was like that style. Remember, they were the talk of baseball because they were doing it not by hitting home runs, but by taking, an extra base, and they were the Johnny Hustles. Like, I think they were everybody's favorite, not everybody's favorite team, but they were kind of a media darling. Like, look at this team. They had 17 guys making their major league debut, and here they are, on the march to the playoffs. They ended up winning the division by 11 games, which I don't think anyone anticipates that happening this year. And I think this year we had, and I'll throw myself in this boat, I think we all assumed that the expectations, well, not assume the expectations, we assumed that this team would be easy an 85 to 90 game winner. And I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 more times. Progress is not linear. I fell into that trap. Now, do I think that the Guardians have a chance to go on a tear in the second half. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. This is what Terry Francona teams do. They get hot in the second half. They kind of finally settle in, and they find some mojo, and they keep going. I get the sense, and I would love to hear from you on this, 216-626-7901. You can also do so on Twitter. Tweet the show at Chico Show CLE. You can also tweet me personally at Big Play Chico, and you can also give some comments on YouTube if you wish. Why does it feel like nobody is anticipating anything great from this team in the second half? And again, there are a variety of reasons. Bohm, you mentioned that, when they've had their struggles, and they were very big struggles at the plate, I mean, it was tough. It was tough. I would say right about now, you're saying, okay, some guys have come alive, but some guys have not. Like Josh Bell continues to be, for the most part, a disappointment. Even if he's hitting recently okay, he's been a big disappointment. Now all of a sudden, the guy we were talking about, is he going to get traded by the deadline August 1st, Shane Bieber. Shane Bieber's having his issues. We're going to talk about that with Justin Lada coming up at the top of the hour with Locked On Guardians. But, his third time through the order, again, struggled. And, as they took 3 out of 4 from Kansas City. That's all you can ask. But Shane Bieber, now people are really starting to wonder, like, what's wrong with Shane Bieber? Now, he's kind of been trending downward, but not falling off a cliff for the last few years. Still been very, very good. I mean, there was a time this season when he was one of the best pitchers in the American League, one of the most consistent, and nobody was talking about him because, well, it was the Guardians, and because they weren't winning games, because every time he pitched, he got no run support. Now, all of a sudden, you look up, like, what would you guess his ERA is, Bohm? Michael Bohm, I want you to guess Shane Bieber's ERA right now, following yesterday's loss to the Kansas City Royals.
I'm going to say 4.36.
You didn't look it up, did you?
No.
You wouldn't do that, Bohm, would you?
I did not.
Okay. His ERA, not quite that high, but it is approaching 377. There's some reason for concern. Now, again, I think with this team, and I've said this many times, with the Guardians, there's not much of a margin for error. Whereas, and I'm not pitting the two, but whereas with the Browns, you will go to all ends, every stretch, every inch of the earth to find an optimistic reasoning or an optimistic, thought when it comes to the Browns. With the Guardians, as soon as Shane Bieber struggles, well, you know what? They missed the time to move him, because I'm hearing that now. They should have moved him well, you can only move him when there's somebody that's ready to take him. And here, I think, is another question for this front office. We know that they are dug in terms of, this is what our price is. If you want Shane Bieber, this is what it's going to cost you. Now he's struggling. Are they going to lower that price, or are they going to be steadfast in, and this is usually what they do, and say, look, okay, we know that he struggled of late. Okay, we know that his velocity's been going down, but we're not giving in. It's going to take a lot still to pry him out of our hands.
Chico, we got a comment with a blast from the past.
Chubba wubba hubba hubba.
No, this is Ronald. Shout out to Ronald.
Oh, this is the guy that he swore off the Guardians after they changed the name.
No. But he is a regular. He's not that guy.
I guarantee this is the same guy. Go ahead.
Well, what he said was he said Josh Bell is like Russell Branyan, homer or strikeout.
No, that's not true.
I love the Russell Branyan reference, though. Man, that guy had an uppercut with that bat.
Yeah, and I will say this. When Josh Bell struggles, his launch angle, here I am, Mr. Analytics. His launch angle goes up. The problem with Josh Bell isn't so much strikeouts as much as it is he's just beating the ball into the ground. And so when he struggles, like he doesn't get lift on the ball, and, well, it's kind of hard to hit home runs unless you have a really, really live baseball and it just hits the warning track just right. It's hard to hit home runs without getting in the air. Yeah, he's been a disappointment. And I think there's a player option for him for next year for like $16 million. There was risk involved with him. Now, if you don't take that risk, I mean, they're going to get criticized regardless. Well, you didn't do enough. You didn't go out. You didn't try to better the team. They did with Josh Bell. There was reason for optimism. He has had those. It's in there. Now, recently, and after the trade to San Diego, and I think it was the second half with San Diego after that trade last year, and then going to like the first couple months this year with the Guardians, he had a combined, it was over like 400 at-bats. And at the time, combined from last year after the trade to San Diego, 8 home runs. So it's like some of the numbers were there, and they're still there, and you're still concerned. Ronald's right in terms of, when he really starts to struggle, he loses that. You actually want him to have more of of an uppercut to his swing. Russell Brandon that's not a good comparison. I mean, he's and I know Ronald's probably just joking around, but
that name has sentimental value to me because I at one point in my little league career drew Russell Brandon comparisons with the big uppercut. I'm just saying. That's
why you read that, because I was wondering why you were so enamored with the Russell. Like, it's not a good comparison to Josh Bell. You know that.
I see what he's going for here, but I agree.
No, you just like the Russell Brandon name.
I do like the Russell Brandon reference,
and I think Ronald. I'm pretty sure Ronald is the guy. Maybe not, and it's okay if he is.
I don't think he is.
He goes by like 4 different names, and he tries to. But Ronald, why do you say you don't think he is?
Based off of Ronald's commentary, he has never contributed anything that would suggest that he is opposed to the Guardians being called the Guardians. Usually that guy like gives off hints. You can sort of sense eventually.
Right, but he uses the beauty of Ronald Bohm. Allow me to educate you a little bit.
His alter ego?
Yes. He has like 3 different names. And, he calls in and open, well, all my friends, we gave up our tickets and we're not going. And at the game the other day when we were wait a minute, I thought you said you didn't go. Oh, well, we went to a couple, yeah. Now, all I'm saying about Josh Bell, he's been a big disappointment. There's no getting around that. Russell Brandon probably isn't the best comparison, though. But he was for you because you love Russell Brandon because all of a sudden it brought you back to your Little League days when, I guess, somehow, somewhere. Bohm, do we have any Little League footage of you? Do we?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't believe so.
Okay.
One of my most embarrassing Little League moments was
you crapped your pants?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I'm Jewish, right? So
Congratulations.
Well, I mimicked Derek Jeter, and I didn't know like that Jeter just did like the Christian
You totally would do that. So you came up and you did the little something, kiss your, and then got in the box.
Yeah, I tried to be Derek Jeter. Early Little League days.
Boom, I see number one, I see a very uncanny resemblance. I'm sure your play was very, very reminiscent of Derek Jeter.
I was a great defenseman. I played first base, though, but I was a great first baseman.
If you were a great defenseman, first of all, it sounds like you're playing hockey or something. If you were a great defenseman in Little League, you played short. Like I was a good defenseman. I played shortstop for a while.
Chico, I made an all-star game with 1 hit the whole season.
How?
My defense. I was a great first baseman.
1 hit?
1 hit, a couple flyouts. I got the bat on the ball for a couple of big chunks, but 1 hit.
Did anyone ever think of going, hey, Mikey. At that point, you're kind of little. Did anyone think to go up to you and say, "Don't copy Russell Brandon"? That's not the guy to don't copy Russell Brandon.
There was also a bit of trauma that goes with that because I was beamed
now we're getting
by the same pitcher who he was born on my birthday, by the way. We were born on the same day, but he beamed me 3 times, and it just ever since all that happened, it's just a throw as hard as you can and hope it's a strike kind of pitcher in Little League. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a terrible hitter too, so I can't. I mean,
I was afraid to stand in the box and face pitches after that.
Well, I had that the step in the bucket thing, and I used to get real upset because they would, when I was taking BP, they would put some baseballs or even a true bucket, behind me, it would be behind my right leg because I was left-handed, and so if I stepped, I would basically step back, hit that, and fall right on my ass, and it would tick me off. If I saw it, I knew it was there. I dodge it, but yeah, so it was a big deal. Anyway, back to our subject: expectations. What are the true expectations? What are your expectations for this club in the second half? I mean, because they could win the division. Minnesota, I don't think Minnesota's Minnesota. Cleveland's Cleveland. I think the difference is last year from this year. Do you see the Guardians going on a 48-25 run the rest of the year? I don't know. Because first of all, they played so many close games, and they played close games last year too, but they won a lot of those close games. And what do you always hear? Well, the law of averages says you play enough of those close games, and some are going to go your way, and then after that, well, some aren't going to go your way, and maybe some of that is starting to creep in this year as opposed to last year. And like I said, last year, guys like Steven Kwan, guys like Andres Jimenez, they weren't really on anyone's radar screen, so, pitchers didn't really have a book out on them. Start this year, they did. And, we've discussed that as well. I think it's really just, it really is about expectations. This year we had expectations, therefore people would say the Guardians at 45-45 going into the All-Star break have been a disappointment. Last year, 45-44 going into the All-Star break. Hell, I can't believe they're 500 or even a game above 500, and you felt like the best was yet to come. I feel like many of you feel like that the best is not yet to come, that they're just going to continue to – they ended up winning the division by 11 games, by the way. 11 games. I don't think anybody foresees that. Now, maybe they will. I mean, we always say with Terry Francona teams, they always play better and they always play well in the second half. But you think about a lot of the things they have working against them right now. Shane Bieber could very well be gone, and if he's not gone, he seems to be struggling right now. You're asking a lot of those young guys in the rotation who are going to be great for a long time, but they can also, and it's only natural that they're going to hit a wall. You're putting a lot on a guy like Tanner Bybee's plate. There are some good things happening too. I mean, Aaron Savali quietly has been an absolute stud lately. He has been great. Andres Jimenez is hitting the baseball well. Jose and Josh Naylor and Will Brennan came out of that early funk he had early in the season. Hopefully Steven Kwan's going to catch fire. Ahmed Rosario's been much better. But so there's some things to feel good about, but I think more than anything else, and I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on this. Again, 216-626-7901, and also on Twitter at Chico Show CLE, or my personal Twitter at Big Play Chico. Why do you not feel, if you do feel that it's not the same as last year, why do you feel that way? And it can be just as simple as expectations. Speaking of expectations, Victor Wembanyama made his Summer League debut, Bohm. And honest to God, if I didn't know any better, after Friday, I would have thought Wembanyama was just a bust and had already played, half a season in the NBA. One game, and people are like, this guy's, he's lost. He's not worth it. He's going to be a bust. Yeah, he's going to be a bust. After one Summer League game. Then the next Summer League game, he scores 27 points.
12 boards, 3 blocks, too?
I mean, people need to realize, and I know it's tough in this society. I get it. Everything is right now. Everything is yesterday. It doesn't work that way, okay? It doesn't work that way in sports. It works that way with your video game sports, but not real-life sports. Victor Wembanyama, I think, comes in and has a very Evan Mobley-like impact his rookie year. I think Wembanyama is a guy that is going to block a lot of shots just because his wingspan and how big he is, and he's good at it. But in terms of I heard some guy say, "Wow, did you see him get the ball in the wing and like he looked very uncomfortable?" He's 7'6" going against NBAers. I mean, there's going to be an adjustment period. It all comes down to expectations. And, because he's number one and because people say, oh, my God, this guy might be the best prospect since LeBron James, and maybe he is. But that doesn't mean that his first Summer League game he's going to come out and score 52 and grab 30 rebounds and block 11 shots. And it's like if he doesn't do that, people are like, well, I don't know. That Wembanyama, that dude might be a bust. It doesn't happen overnight.
Watching him move, though. When he handles a basketball,
yeah,
you can see the smoothness, unlike any big man. I mean, I don't want to say unlike any, but it's rare. It's just you can see the potential.
Unicorn. Yeah. Would you say he's a unicorn?
I think that is absolutely fair.
Okay. All right. Speaking of fair, we're going to take a little bit of a break. When we come back, we're going to play a little fair or foul. Again, home run derby tonight. Who you got? Bohm says, I'm taking my boy, Julio Rodriguez. That was who I picked last year.
Your boy.
I think Bohm is copying me, but I do like the fact that it's Seattle, too. A hometown crowd. A lot of times that'll help as well. By the way, we are going to go over the bracket at some point. I don't like some of the matchups. I don't like some of the seeds. And we'll explain that a little bit later in the second hour. But Bohm's going with Julio Rodriguez. So we'll see if he does prevail tonight. But we'll talk to Justin Lada top of the hour about the Guardians. The draft was last night, continuing today. We'll talk to him about some of the newest Guardians and what he anticipates for the second half. That's coming your way at noon. But when we come back, it is a Monday edition from Mr. Bombastic of Fair or Foul. Stick around. It is the Chico Bormann Show. We've got more to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back on this Monday morning. Still, I'm still not used to saying morning yet, but that's okay. We're approaching the noon hour. Coming up at 12 noon, we'll be talking to Justin Lada from Locked On Guardians. They drafted a catcher yesterday, and I know some people are already inserting their jokes. Oh, now you're trying to find... Easy. We'll talk to Justin about that, what to expect in the second half, who may or may not be here in the second half, all of that stuff coming up at noon. So we'll do that. Before we get to Fair or Foul, also want to tell you about our good friends at Nirvana Super Water. We've been giving you the website for a while now, feelsuper.com. That's feelsuper.com. Go there, type in the keyword Big Play 20, Big Play 20, and you will get 20% off your next purchase. I mean, what more can we say? Obviously we're in the dog days of summer. You want to replenish those electrolytes just being out and about, but certainly if you're working out, if you're working out in the yard, stuff like that, this is the stuff. But also, we're talking about HMB. Nobody else on the market has this, and this is something that you're going to be hearing more and more about. But HMB has been used and is being used in cancer treatment patients and stuff like that. And our friends at Nirvana Superwater are the only ones that have access to this right now and have it in their product. It is unbelievable. Certainly encourage you to check it out. Great flavors as well. I'm holding the orange peach. Strawberry basil lemonade, very good. You know what I had on Friday, Boom? I had a seltzer. It was the Nirvana Super Seltzer water, and it was, I think, pineapple something or another, but it was delightful. Dare I say, Boom, delightful. So, again, feelsuper.com, Big Play 20, the keyword. You get 20% off your next purchase. Boom, you want to...
Yeah, Chico. So I mentioned earlier in the show that I played a gig here over the weekend. And so the past couple of shows that I played, I've been bringing a couple of Nirvana Super Waters with me, right, for the show. And I notice a specific difference when I have them at my disposal on stage, because something that happens a lot of times from like just sweating profusely and exhausting so much energy.
Banging your head like this constantly. Yeah.
My fingers will sometimes cramp up, right? That has not happened since I've been using Nirvana Super Water on stage.
All right. Now,
So-
you got to make sure when you have that just sitting on stage that nobody drinks it.
I know, right?
Kind of like the old Orange Crush commercials where the kid hides with it behind the tree and drinks his...
Nobody touch it. They're mine.
Yeah. So just be careful on that. But, yeah.
Those electrolytes make a difference, Chico.
There you go. Feelsuper.com, Big Play 20, the keyword, 20% off your purchase. All right. With that, let's play a little Fair or Foul.
All right, Chico. Well, I want to start things off because you were talking a little bit about Victor Wembanyama.
Yep.
And his performance in Summer League. And obviously, look at his last performance, 27 points, 12 boards, 3 blocks. You see a lot of the potential there, some of that superstar potential. Granted, it is Summer League, but he also had that rough performance. And I know you kind of already touched on it, but I wanted to lead off here and just ask whether this performance or these two performances out of Wembanyama, I suppose, were kind of a wake-up call for you. Is it fair or foul to say that?
A wake-up call.
In terms of the real expectations from a guy with so much hype.
You mean that he's not going to just dominate right away? Is that what you're saying? Or, I mean, okay, I'm going to go fair on this, but I don't think it's necessarily an eye-opener. My point is, from earlier in the show, people need to remember that, he's just starting his NBA career. And yes, he was number one for a reason, so you're certainly going to see glimpses of why he was number one. Other than just 7'6", I mean, he's a freak, how he can handle the basketball and how he can put it on the floor and obviously from a defensive standpoint. But I think those wanting to see him just go coast to coast with the basketball and juke guys out, you're not being fair to him. It's still going to be a process. So and again, the last game you mentioned, 27 points and 12 boards, I think it was. But the game on Friday, they showed that clip over and over and over again of him on the wing where he looked a little like, uncomfortable or hesitant. And it's like, guys, he's just getting used to the NBA. I mean, just let him have some time. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, and I think, not only that, but just as opposed to playing in college, playing overseas professionally.
Yeah.
I think there's I don't know if I can explain it, but I feel like there's a bigger transition process coming from overseas as opposed to NBA.
Makes sense.
Or,
makes sense.
College.
Yeah.
But moving on to another summer league player, because I wanted to ask you about Imani Bates, who he did get some buckets. He did rack up a little bit of numbers, but first game I think it was 5 of 18 shooting. Second game finished 5 of 12. So, obviously he's getting a high volume of shots. Not a lot of them are falling. A player who has emerged, and he's been in his last season, he put up a lot of good numbers with the Cavs G League team, the Charge. Isaiah Mobley, who was the team's leading scorer in this most recent game. So I want to ask you, Chico, fair or foul? Imani Bates racks up more points for the Cavs this year than Isaiah Mobley.
I'm going to go foul. I think Mobley. Now you're saying at the NBA level, we're not counting.
Correct,
Canton.
not counting Charge.
Okay, so I think Isaiah is going to play more at the NBA level. I think Imani Bates is going to see some time, but not nearly as much as Isaiah Mobley. Apparently, they really like a lot of other things they've seen from him too. And that's not to say that like Isaiah Mobley is all of a sudden just going to. But you could see, I think. Even when, and he was overshadowed by Evan, obviously, at USC, but Isaiah Mobley was a great player in his own right. He's not going to be Evan. Nobody should expect him to be Evan, but he's got the talent. But I think in terms of who's going to be, scoring more points, I think I'm going to say Isaiah Mobley simply because I think he's going to have more opportunities than Imani Bates. I think Bates is going to he's going to spend most of his time, in Canton, and I think, he has great talent. We all know that. But I think, we just assume because, he was this hot to trot prospect and was headed to, what was it, Memphis, I think. And, he's got this is the NBA. I mean, there's a lot more than just, I can fire up a bunch of shots and I have a lot of talent. Guess what? A lot of guys have talent and even more talent than you do. You got to find a way. You got to find your niche. And he's got to be patient enough to find his niche. We'll see if he can do that.
Yeah, and the reason that I pose this question, and because I could
because you're in love with Imani Bates, you are.
I'm hopeful for him.
You have a man
for the
crush.
young rook, for the young buck. But I see an avenue for it to be plausible because one, I think on this Cavs roster, there's more opportunity for him. There's more of a need for what he could do if he's hitting, and I think Isaiah Mobley could be considered a little bit of a tweener, right? He doesn't have Evan Mobley's length. He doesn't really necessarily have that range. Now, certainly, I think that, as you said, the Cavs have to feel good about him, and he's been racking up
But Isaiah
some huge
Mobley
talent.
can play better defense than Imani.
Yes.
Imani Bates doesn't play D.
Yeah, I'm just saying, last year, the need for more consistent shooters, which Bates has not yet been. Early off of 2 summer league games. But the need for more consistent outside shooting, I think, has been just a massive gaping hole for this Cavs roster. So I think there's potential for it.
True, but I think that's why they brought in Strus and Niang, and I don't think they're looking to Imani Bates to fill that void. But down the road maybe, but not right away.
Sure, and I hope those signings pan out. We don't get another Josh Bell Zanino situation on our hands here.
I'm sure the Guardians appreciate you bringing them up yet again. Now even using basketball analogies. Great. It's good.
You're welcome, Guards. All right, Chico. So, actually, speaking of which, I did want to shift gears to the Diamond. Ellie De La Cruz. I'm sure you saw the play, right?
Where he stole every base.
Stole every base, including home, and that was, God. I mean, how did the Brewers get so off guard? But no, that was a sensational series of highlights, I should say, out of De La Cruz. Quickly becoming the most exciting baseball player in Major League Baseball. Fair or foul, Chico? Taking De La Cruz over Ronald Acuna to start a franchise.
Foul. Oh, foul. I mean, De La Cruz is outstanding. Ronald Acuna, I mean, you're talking about, and we saw him briefly here in Cleveland during that 3-game series. Braves won 2 out of 3. Next to Shohei Ohtani, and there's Shohei Ohtani and then everybody else, and everybody hopefully realizes that. But the next best player, the most exciting player, the best player is Ronald Acuna, and it's not close. Now, Ellie De La Cruz is, I mean, he's on that track. But, I mean, you're talking about Acuna. Acuna not only hits for power, he's got 40 stolen bases. He's hitting like 335. I mean, what De La Cruz has done in such a small sample size, and to be able to, like, he has that it factor, right? He has that it factor that, you know, you just can't, like, people, here's the thing. Some people may say they'd rather pay money to see Ellie De La Cruz over Ronald Acuna. That doesn't mean that Ellie De La Cruz is a better baseball player than Ronald Acuna. Ellie De La Cruz right now is just kind of that guy that, you know, even when he gets called out for the little bat thing, you know, and then he hits a home run right after they check it, and then he looks at, he's it. He's got that it factor, and good for Cincinnati.
Yeah, this guy, major face of baseball vibes. You know, he's just a cool player. He's smooth.
And you like smooth, Bohm. You're a big smooth kind of guy.
I am a big smooth guy.
Yeah.
Big smoother over here.
Yeah.
I think also it kind of reminds me of just when Fernando Tatis started to burst onto the scene.
And that's who yep. Booney was saying that last week. It kind of reminds him a little bit of Tatis.
Yeah, and that same sort of excitement that was just culminating around him. And unfortunately for Tatis, it's kind of died down a little bit. Obviously, some off-the-field things have ensued. But, yeah, De La Cruz, a lot of excitement. Anyways, moving forward here, I want to ask you about Shane Bieber because you were talking about him. Obviously, as far as guards pitchers, he would probably... I think it would be fair to say that he's most likely the one that would be dealt if the Guardians decided to deal one of their starting pitchers. But fair or foul, because you mentioned how it seems like of late he struggled to deal with hitters going into the third time facing them in a matchup. Mm-hmm. Fair or foul, Shane Bieber has lost significant trade value this month.
Significant, no, but, I mean, it's already been... kind of, and this is just any good GM. I was talking about this a couple weeks ago. Like, I have no problem with the Guardians, Chernoff and Antonetti, doing their thing where they, you know, hey, this is our price. We're not budging off of it. This is what we're going to do. I also understand that if you're a rival GM and you're trying to land Shane Bieber, you're going to say, well, we're not giving you that package because, you know, just look at his fastball is declining. He's not the same pitcher he was a few years ago. He's good, but not great. I don't know if we can trust him, you know, in a playoff series to, like, really be our ace. So there's all of this stuff back and forth. But I think, has he lost some value? Yeah. I mean, because a team trying to get him and not wanting to give up the big package that the Guardians are looking for, they're going to be bringing this stuff up. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say that.
Yeah, and I am fascinated to see how this all ensues. I think ultimately they wind up holding on to Shane. I don't think he gets dealt.
Why? Why? Like, is it because the Guardians are firm on what they want and they don't get it, or because they decide that we can't move him because, you know, we got to keep him in the rotation?
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of both of those, and I do believe that they're not going to get what they want. Like, they probably expect a haul for an ace like Shane
That's
Bieber.
the biggest reason he wouldn't move. If he doesn't go, that's the biggest reason.
I just don't expect them to receive an offer like that they couldn't refuse.
Well, okay, so the answer then is, do you think that they're going to come down a little bit on their demands? Stay tuned, because that's what we're going to ask Justin Lada coming up at the top of the hour here in just a bit. But
yeah, and they're definitely going to have to, especially if Bieber's performance continues on this trajectory. I think, but I mean, it's hard to like just expect one way or the other. But even if you're getting good Shane Bieber, I don't expect them to come away with a haul that sounds like, oh, this is a steal for the Guardians. Now, that being said, I mean, Guardians organization is good as any at finding that talent in the farm system.
Okay, so give me an idea of just, I mean, in general, you don't have to name a name, but in general, what do you think the package involves that the Guardians will be looking for in return for Shane Bieber?
I think you want someone who can contribute now, and you want someone from the future, or for the future.
Okay, contribute now where?
Bats, for sure.
Outfield. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I
Outfield.
think so, too.
Maybe someone who could relieve Miles Straw of some duty.
Well, and that's if you don't, I mean, not somebody to relieve Miles. See, that's what I'm saying. You're missing the boat on Straw. You were like, no, he's good. But he doesn't have to play 7 days. You can play Will Brennan in center field. I'm not saying he's as good as he is defense. He's not. Miles Straw might be the best defensive center fielder in the game. But I can't. The idea that the dude hasn't stolen a base since April is driving me insane. Or early May or something like that. Like, that's what you're there for. That's what they signed you for. So if they're bringing in somebody, it's not to give Miles Straw. It's they found that guy. They're tired of platooning somebody in right field, and they found somebody that can contribute now and is under team control for a while. I think, yeah, I agree with that. How much you can expect or what you can expect from the future in terms of what they would throw in on top of that might not be that extravagant, but they definitely want somebody, I think, that they can plug into the lineup now.
Yeah, I think that's for sure. But also, I always like it when the Guardians. Now, I'm not saying that they should deal Bieber, but I like it when the Guardians acquire those minor league prospects because I have faith in their ability to scout these guys, and I feel like they have a knack for finding talent. Now, that hasn't always been the case. You know, you have your fair share of Matt Laportas out there.
Yeah, but people aren't going to be happy if they get minor league prospects for Bieber right now because they're.
You want to win now. Feels like you have a window.
Yeah, I mean, you want both. You want to do both. You want somebody under team control, but you also want somebody that is going to be able to step in and provide you some offense right away. And question is, it's always tough to match those up, and will you find that person?
Yeah, so that is going to do it for
Fair
Boom,
why are you laughing now? What is funny?
I was just going to remark how I'm really excited to hear about all the shiny new toys that the Guardians got here in the MLB draft, and our boy Justin Lada.
You just like to say.
I wasn't planning.
You just
on
like to say
up,
shiny new toys, like you.
No, I mean, I'm excited.
You just like.
I want to learn about
it. You just like using that term.
Sure.
How you doing today, Bohm? Good.
I'm doing all right, Chico. We're chilling.
All right, I'll tell you what. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the aforementioned Justin Lada, who had a busy night and kind enough to join us here at noon as we go back and look at who the Guardians did acquire with the draft. We got a bunch of stuff to go with him on. Talk about who they did acquire, a certain catcher, save your Christmas story jokes, and also Shane Bieber, not so great again. How might this team look by August 1st? And the expectations we talked about. Last year at this time, pretty much the same record. I think the feeling towards the team is completely different. We'll get Justin's opinion on that and much more when we come back. It is the Chico Bormann Show. It's all straight ahead right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back on this Monday afternoon, the Chico Bormann Show here in the Big Play Sports Network. And, of course, you can find us streaming it live each and every day, Monday through Friday, 11 until 1 on Twitter, at Chico Show CLE. Also find us on YouTube, the Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe, and you will be all set to go. Well, if we're talking about up-and-comers or new faces when it comes to, well, baseball, period, but specifically the Cleveland Guardians, we are going to bring in our good buddy Justin Lada with Locked On Guardians. And, of course, you know him. We just talked to him last week, as a matter of fact, because there's a lot to talk about as far as some of these youngsters and who might be staying, who might be going. So he joins us right now. Justin, appreciate the time. I know it was you were going through all of the different prospects and kind of seeing who was going to be available, who might fall to the Guardians. I didn't see, for what it's worth, and Kyler McDaniel I've had on the show many times. I like him a lot. I didn't see many mock drafts, for what it's worth, that had Velasquez, the catcher, going to the Guardians. That doesn't mean anything. Give us how much of a surprise was it for you to see the Guardians at 23 go to Velasquez and kind of give us the skinny on him?
It probably shouldn't have been a surprise. And good afternoon to you, Chico. Thanks for having me on again. I know everyone's probably sick of my voice at this point.
No. You're the man.
It probably shouldn't have been a surprise. There's a lot of traits there that connect them. And he's not a player I think a lot of us spent a time on looking at this, as far as Cleveland-specific people who don't do this for a living but do it for fun. And he's a good player. I mean, he has a good contact rate. He understands the strike zone well. He's got good leadership characteristics. I did not see anybody connecting them to him in any mocks, like you said, for what that's worth. But there were also a lot of players that they were connected to that were off the board at that point. So I think a lot of people felt that there were players that Cleveland was interested in that would have gone to them at 23 that ended up off the board before they got there. So I don't want to say they pivoted to him, because Velasquez is still a good player who's got a good arm behind the plate, has played against good competition in Northern California. There's good power there. He is definitely not a tinker toy type player. I heard your bit about the jokes before. He definitely has good power. It's a nice change from what the Guardians have done. They have really been kind of focused on, young for the class players that play up the middle and have high contact rates. And he does have that, but he also is a guy who hits for a lot of power. So this is a good player to fit in their system that they don't really currently have.
Yeah, and it seems as though, I mean, and again, it's so early in the process, which we always have to establish, but he seems like a guy that maybe he doesn't end up as a catcher. Like you said, he's got a great arm, but it's when you're talking about him and you're saying, okay, what's the first thing you're going to talk about him? It's the bat and not necessarily, wow, he's so polished behind the plate, right?
Yeah, the bat's the carrying tool here, the ability to make contact and draw walks and understand the strike zone, but definitely the power. The power could be a carrying tool for him. It's not a glove first profile, but you want to know what? Bo Naylor necessarily wasn't a glove first guy either. He was a bat first guy. And for what it's worth, I think a lot of people feel like Velasquez, if he doesn't end up behind the plate, the bat's going to play, whether it's at first base or third base. And he's relatively new to catching too. This is not a position he's played at a long time. And not to keep drawing comparisons to Bo Naylor, but Bo Naylor wasn't necessarily a catcher on the high school circuit either. He was a guy who was a third baseman and infielder, and people felt like he could have ended up in a different position too. And as we move closer towards, robo umps and potentially an automated strike zone system, the framing matters a lot less. So that's one piece of pressure to take off him. But yeah, the bat can carry, whether it's catcher or first base. You don't have to feel like if he doesn't stick at catcher, the bat won't play anywhere else. The bat is going to play potentially at a corner. So I think that's a good sign.
All right. So you brought up something there that I have to revisit here quickly. The robo umps, and look, I'll be the first to say that heading into the season, I'm like, I don't know if these changes. I've been very pleasantly surprised and totally on board. At some point, I feel like I've got to draw the line with robo umps behind the plate. And you're a guy that is, and certainly covering the minor leagues, because that's where they're guinea pigs. That's where it's happening. What are your thoughts as far as robo umps behind the plate?
I like it. I mean, I have really been annoyed over the last several years that, always talk about, well, this umpire has a strike zone that he likes to call the outside strike. He likes to call the high striker. He's not giving guys this corner today. It's like the strike zone is the strike zone for a hitter. You can't just have a guy who doesn't call the inside strike. If it's a strike, it's a strike. It changes based on the hitter, but you can't say like, this is my zone. Like the zone is the zone. It's not open for interpretation. There are rules about, knees to letters, right? That's the rule. I will say with respect to umpires too, it's getting a lot harder because guys throw harder than ever. The breaking stuff's harder than ever. You got framing. It's a lot harder than ever to call balls and strikes. So I give them a little bit of a leeway there, but I think the automated strike system is going to be a nice, refreshing change. I think a lot of people were like you, Chico. They were not super on board with the pitch clock and all these other things. And as the season's gone on, they've seen that they don't even think about it. It's just part of the game now. And and that was how it happened in the minors too. In the minors, the pitch clock became part of the game. Nobody noticed it took anything away from the game. It just made things more fluid. And I think it will here too. And think about this. You're late in the game and you don't get a call that's pivotal. You can tap on your head. They do this little signal thing to challenge a pitch in the minor leagues right now. And you get a strike overturned. That changes the momentum of an at bat. It gets the crowd into it because now a ball that they thought should have been a strike was a strike. And the entire, calculus of the at bat and the inning has changed. That could be a lot of fun.
He is Justin Lada talking Guardians baseball here. Again, Guardians off, everybody off for the All-Star break. The Guardians will be back at it again on Friday. They will be in Texas taking on the Rangers, followed by a series in Pittsburgh. They, of course, are a half game ahead of the Minnesota Twins in the AL Central. They currently own a record of 45-45. We'll get to more about them right now at the break and in the second half in a moment. But tell us a little bit more beyond just Velasquez. We got a high school pitcher they drafted after him, and then I think there's somebody else as well, if you could comment on those.
Yeah, so at 58th overall, they took Alex Clemmie, who's a left-hander out of Rhode Island, high school pitcher who's still, I believe, only 17 years old, 6'6", 210, about 220. A lot of projection there. Like Velasquez a little bit, kind of bucking trends from recent years. Fastball that's, 92, 95. He will get up to 99 at times so that there is more velocity in the tank. And a lot of people feel like as he kind of adds strength and works on some mechanical things, it gets into the pro game that he could start living more 95, 97 and continue to hit 99. That's the hope anyway. There's a big curveball there, a lot of spin on the fastball and the curveball. Still working on a changeup. That's, not a lot of high school pitchers come into the pro game with a developed changeup because they just don't need it. Unless you're like it's your specialty pitch, like Logan Allen threw a great changeup in high school. So rare for a guy to have a great changeup. So that's going to be developing. The big thing for him is control. It's a very complex delivery. It's a very deceptive motion, but it can be hard to repeat. And he's had control issues in high school, and that's typically not a player they have drafted a ton of in the past. And, you'd have to go back to Tristan McKenzie and Sam Henches are good examples of high school pitchers they developed. Before that, your best high school pitcher they developed was CC Sabathia. So it's not a type of player they have typically done well with, and especially they excel with guys who throw strikes and just need to throw harder. This is a guy who already throws pretty hard, who could throw harder when he gets more mature, and strike throwing is going to be an interesting thing. So this is a guy who could end up being a top 5 prospect, or he could end up being a reliever. So there's a lot of risk there.
Justin, one of the things, and I know when people hear draft, they immediately think NFL draft, and they immediately think, okay, this guy's, going to come in right away, and this is a need for the team, and it doesn't really work that way in baseball. However, that said, one of the things we're seeing a lot of, even before the draft and that first round, is teams have a plethora of or teams seem to have more of middle infielders. Now, we don't need to talk about the Guardians because we already know that, and we're waiting to see, are they going to package some of these guys by August 1? But correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I saw like 2 or 3, maybe 4 shortstops drafted. So it's one of those things where while we're sitting here talking about putting a package together where you can move some of these middle infielders, it's not like a lot of teams, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, it's not like a lot of teams have like a real void in their farm system or anywhere for that matter as far as middle infielders. Am I right or wrong?
No, I definitely agree with that. I think that's why they haven't found a trade partner for any of these guys recently. It's because, they have the Brian Rocchios and all those guys like that. And other teams have nice infielders too. Like you said, bunch of college infielders went in the first round last night. A bunch of high school shortstops went in the draft. There was a couple that, might have been in Cleveland's range as well. So all teams are trying to go for up the middle talent because of the positional value there, of course.
Okay, so looking at this Guardians team, we're talking to Justin Lada here day after the draft. Now, by the way, get us updated as far as, because the draft's not over, obviously. Still plenty more to go. Tell us when things start up again and where the Guardians are at and all that good stuff.
Yeah, they made their third pick yesterday, which was a college reliever out of Miami, Andrew Walters, who is pretty much a reliever. So I believe picks rounds 3 through 10 go today. That starts at 2:00, and I think 11 through 20 go on Wednesday in the afternoon as well. So there's still, a lot of picks to go today and tomorrow.
Okay, so let's go to where we're at right now at the break, 45 and 45. I think it's interesting because a year ago at this time, I know my expectations were nowhere near what they were going into this season. So I saw that and I thought, hey, you know what? This is good. And then, of course, they decided to come out, and I think they went 48 and 25 the rest of the way. And it was like, and then we know what they did in the postseason. Why does it feel like a lot of people are kind of down, like, that's not going to happen this year? And do you think that there's good reason for people to feel that way as you look at the roster, as you look at some of the guys that are struggling and also some of the guys that are doing well? Like, factor all that in and say, you know what, maybe last year's second half isn't going to match this year's second half.
There's a lot of variables involved there, right? Like, nobody saw the second half run offensively for them last year the way it did. And it's hard to picture that as well. But, you hope a lot of these guys kind of who have been going through growing pains offensively in the first half come out on the other side a lot better. You're going to deal with ups and downs with Bo Naylor. I mean, Will Brennan has kind of broke out of things a little bit. You've seen some good signs of life from Andres Jimenez recently. He's starting to run more too, which this team needs more of.
Good point.
Jose Ramirez has looked like Jose Ramirez again. That's a really good sign. And if they can handle the pitching right, as far as, limiting guys' innings, because they have all those rookies and things like that, if they could manage that right, and you can they need an improvement from Shane Bieber in the second half if he's going to stay. They need him to kind of pick up a little bit, I think. But they have better pitching this year, I would say, than they did a year ago, because, Aaron Savali was great his last start. And if he can stay healthy for the second half, he looks like a really good piece of the rotation. They just didn't have that in the second half. Last year they had McKenzie, and you had, Bieber was pretty good, but you didn't have Bybee, Allen, and Williams. And if you manage it correctly, your pitching in the second half is much better than it was a year ago. And if the offense can just find its way to league average, I mean, Josh Naylor is turning into a complete hitter, right now, I think too. He's been really fun to watch this year. All those pieces come together in the second half. I don't know if they can match last year's second half run. I mean, they went 21-8 in September last year. I don't know if you're seeing that again, not with the way the schedule plays out, because you don't have the 19 games against the Royals and all that kind of stuff this year. But I think they can win enough games where they can, stay within reach of winning the division at the very least.
Okay, so we saw Bieber yesterday in the finale of that series against Kansas City. Wasn't, vintage Bieber by any stretch. And he's had his issues, talk about, third time through lineups, and even before that, even when he was going well, a lot of opposing clubs, there's velocities down on his fastball. Do you think there is any way, with the struggles that he's had of late, and as we get closer to August 1, do you think there is any way at all that Mike Chernoff and Chris Antonetti kind of lower that price tag a bit? Because we always talk about them being dug in, but if he's struggling, would they consider, okay, maybe it doesn't have to be such a hefty package in return, or do you think they're just dead set on that?
That's a great question. It's really hard to figure out. I can't wrap my brain around that right now, because the thing is, if they lower that and you're getting less of a return for the guy who's your ace, and you also have to factor in the McKenzie injury, Quantrill is hurt and has had his struggles. Savali is not a guy who's ever really stayed healthy for a full season. You're hopeful, but you have to kind of quantify all that into what you're going to do with Bieber. I think you can't it's not a standalone decision where you can say, well, we can trade this guy for this piece and then move on and see what happens. You have to kind of put all that into the calculus of a decision here. And I feel like if you're going to lessen the return for a guy who's supposed to be your ace, the guy that you would want starting game one of a playoff game, why wouldn't you just be better off keeping him this year? Is he more valuable to your team right now, given what's going on, than what you might get back from him if you have to lower your price tag, and then you can kind of revisit over the winter? He might be more valuable to them if that's the case, if you have to drop the price tag on him.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, and that's, I know that they have been very adamant, and I understand that. I like that about them, quite frankly. But then at the same time, yeah, like what you're saying is, okay, well, wait a minute. If we're going to deal this guy and we're not going to get what we thought we were going to get initially, look, there are some, I mean, you mentioned Tristan. I hope the guy comes back and pitches, but I don't think he's going to. I love what Aaron Savali's doing now, but you're right. Can we really, 100% believe in that? I don't know. And then these young guys who I think are going to be great down the road, you just can't expect them, guys like Tanner Bybee and Gavin Williams, to just shoulder the load and say, all right, well, get on my back, boys. We're going to the postseason. It's just not that easy. But one other thing I wanted to ask you about, there's been struggles, up and down the lineup and certainly in the early part of the season. But now they're starting to hit a little bit more. But when you look at Josh Bell, what is it that is like what's his kryptonite right now? What is the problem? What is he struggling with the most when you watch him and see where he's at right now?
I think it's just his own swing. I don't know if there's one thing. His swing just gets so out of whack. He's a guy who's got to get the ball in the air, and he talks about all the time about if he hits the ball on the ground, he knows his swing isn't going right. He should be hitting for more power. He's still taking walks, which is good, but you see a lot of those balls where they come off the end of his bat and they're like little tappers, they're ground outs, and he's just not quite getting the barrel to the ball in those. And he's been a guy in the past who typically has one good half and one bad half. And I guess this is not a good half, so you hope the second half is good. So it's just evening out the swing. I mean, he's getting on balls that are up in the zone. You saw the home run he hit the other day. That ball he hit to left field was
bomb,
above the strike zone. Yeah, it wasn't even a strike.
Yep.
He's just got to find those balls lower in the zone, especially as a left-hander, where he can get his full swing around. Because sometimes he just comes so, I feel like, out of his shoes when he's taking big swings like that.
One last thing for you, and we'll let you go. As we approach August 1, and I know there's still a lot of games to be played. I know there's still, a lot can happen. But Shane Bieber, is Shane Bieber, Ahmed Rosario, Tyler Freeman, and Gabriel Arias all in a Guardians uniform after April 1?
All of them?
Yeah.
I'm going to say no, not all of them.
Okay.
I think one of those guys has to go to open up playing time, or if you're going to find like a piece to this lineup that you like, that, maybe it's a Brandon Guy or Ryan Rayburn type, I think one of those guys, and obviously not Shane Bieber, but one of those guys might have to be a part of that. Give us an idea for fans out there that are saying, okay, we keep hearing about a guy that they could plug in right now that would be an upgrade for the offense and maybe specifically the outfield. Can you give us just a few names of guys that might be available, they might be having conversations with? And if really you don't feel comfortable commenting on that, that's fine too. I'm just trying to get a feel for the fans right now. It's really hard because of the second wild card. It's very hard to determine who's going to sell and who's not. Like, right. The Athletics don't have a whole lot left to pick off the bone there. Brent Rooker, who just made the All-Star team. I mean, Brent Rooker is there's a lot of, he hits left-handed pitching very well. So that could be a guy who plays the outfield and maybe some first base and some DH, and he's got some club control. If you believe in the bat, like, he's not a rental. I think the best bet from them is a right-handed hitter who is a rental, because you're not giving up as much for this year because you don't know how deep this run is going to be, and you don't want to give up much for a rental. But the rental market is going to be hard to assess because you've got so many teams who don't have much left to trade, and they might be even in the race. Like the Cardinals, nobody knows what they're going to do. Maybe they want Shane Bieber. Maybe they want to give up an outfielder, but they want a major league pitcher back. And they've got some interesting guys, but they've also got guys who haven't really performed lately, so that's also a big risk.
All right, I lied. Last thing, we got to get a pick from you. Luis Robert, Adley Rutschman, Adolis Garcia, Randy Arozarena, Mookie Betts, Vlad Glad, Pete Alonso, Julio Rodriguez. Who you got?
Pete Alonso, man, he always shows up to these things. He likes to hit in the big moments. I'm going Pete Alonso.
Pete Alonso, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm glad you said him because I'm looking at him and he's going against, it looks like Julio Rodriguez in the first round. Pete Alonso, this is on ESPN, they have him as a 7th seed. That can't be right, can it?
They're going by home runs. I think he's kind of struggled the last month, so that could be why.
Wow. Pete Alonso is a 7th seed. And I mean, look, I think Julio Rodriguez at home with the fans and everything, the adrenaline could, but Pete Alonso, he's one guy that says like, yeah, I really give a damn about this. And even before I made Major League Baseball and was a kid, I thought more about the home run derby than anything else. So, all right, you're going Pete Alonso. Bohm and I are going with Julio Rodriguez. I've got my eye on Randy Arozarena. I will say that.
Yeah, and I probably should have gone with that pick as well. Randy's a big game player too, and this is an all-star event. He'll show up for this.
Well, you're a big game player as well. Justin Lada, we appreciate it. The draft resumes this afternoon at 2 o'clock. I know you'll be all over it. And, of course, follow him on Twitter and also Locked On Guardians, and give us all the other and again, you're going to be wanting this information, folks, because when these guys do find out where they're going, and you're going to want to follow their progress everywhere that folks can find information on the young talent in the Guardians organization is where, Justin?
Next year in Cleveland.substack.com is where we'll have most of it. You can find some of it at Prospects Live, some of it the News Herald and the Morning Journal as well, but it'll be kind of everywhere.
You're the man. Thank you, pal, and enjoy the All-Star festivities and enjoy the second half as well. Thanks, bud.
You too. Thanks, Chico.
All right, that is Justin Lada, one of the best in the business. Again, you want to talk about guys that know the farm system inside and out. Pete Alonso, I've got to figure out if he really is a 7th seed. Now, if they're going by home run. Now, last year he got ousted. I think Rodriguez is the one that ousted him. And ironically, I think they square off in the first round this year. Alonso has 26 home runs. Like Luis Robert, who's very good with the White Sox. I mean, one of the best all-around players in the game. Luis Robert has 26. He's the number 1 seed. Like, Luis Robert shouldn't be at least this is what I'm looking at. This is on MLB, this is on ESPN.com, and I'm looking at the home run derby bracket. It's got Luis Robert Jr. 1 versus Adley Rutschman 8, the catcher from Baltimore. Garcia from Texas, 4th seed, 5th seed Randy Arozarena. 6th seed Mookie Betts versus 3 seed Vlad Guerrero Jr., and then the 7th seed Pete Alonso versus 2 seed Julio Rodriguez. There's just no way in hell Pete Alonso is a 7th seed.
The logic doesn't line up to me, Chico. Like making Robert the 1 despite having the same amount. And Lada said like these rankings were based upon home runs during the season.
But
so I'm kind of confused.
Alonso's 3rd.
Yeah, I don't really get it. Has Robert been on a tear lately with his homers? Like, has he been? Have we seen an upscale of dingers?
I mean, he's been great all season. I really would like to know how they come up with the criteria for it. And I'm not. I know it's not. There's always going to be people that can question it, but like, first of all, Matt Olson should be in it from the Atlanta Braves. I don't know if he declined. Some of these guys do decline. Matt Olson has been hitting. I mean, he's 2nd in the league with 29. Nobody talks about him. We all want to see Shohei.
I was just going to ask, are you bummed that Shohei
Yes.
is not participating?
Yeah, I understand it. I get it. But, of course. I mean, Shohei Ohtani is the face of baseball. He is the best in baseball, and it's not even close. And it's one of those things where, and he's hurt, obviously, because he's not going to pitch either. Not anything serious, but yeah, he's got to. I wish he was in this thing, though. The home run derby with Shohei Ohtani would be through the roof.
Yeah, and then selfishly, I really, really wish Josh Naylor could have been in it. I feel like he could compete, and he's an exciting player. And then also, I think it would have been fun to have Ellie in the fold, Ellie De La Cruz. That would have been. I mean, he's a spark right now in Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know how, it's interesting you say that. I don't know how many of these guys have been asked and just said no for various reasons. I mean, some is, like Emmanuel Clase is an all-star. He wants to go home. His girlfriend is pregnant, and I guess soon expecting, so he wanted to go home and be with her in the Dominican. You understand that. Other guys, I don't know. It's
Shohei was definitely asked. There's no way he wasn't.
Well, yeah, but he's hurt.
Yeah. It's
You
but
didn't know he was hurt, did you?
no, I didn't.
Yeah, he's got like.
Is he,
yeah,
so he's missing the game altogether?
Well, he had a. Well, I don't know how much. He had a blister on his one of his pitching fingers, and then I think there was something else. I want to say it was like an ankle. Nothing serious, but I mean, if I'm the Angels, look, that's especially with Mike Trout down. I will say this though, with the All-Star, with the Home Run Derby, the way it's configured now, and how they do it, the rules, it's always going to be exciting. That they have improved that. Like the Home Run Derby tonight, I'm not going to say must see TV, but it's pretty darn close.
It's fun.
It's pretty darn close, and I will watch it. I definitely will watch it. I think I'm with Justin. I know I said Julio Rodriguez last week. I think Alonso is going to win it, but I think a Rosarina. Look out. Look out.
Now, let me ask you this about Shohei, though. Do you think, because obviously he's on the last year of his deal and the Angels are the Angels, do you think it's possible that we could see him getting dealt this season?
Oh, is it possible? Yeah.
Do you think it happens?
I have to say I don't know, only because, and it's not a cop-out, if he has any interest, in staying in L.A., then Artie Moreno has to make that happen. Like, if you are the owner, especially when you're a guy, and, I mean, who am I to spend Artie Moreno's money? But Artie Moreno has spent a ton of money, and he's wasted a lot of money. Like, well, I'll bring this guy in, and we'll bring Pujols in. Here's a guy who is just a unicorn and is doing something that nobody else has done. He's by far and away the best player in the game, and it's not even close. If he gives you any indication that he wants to stay in L.A. and play for the Angels, if you're Artie Moreno, you've just got to find a way to make that work, and you cannot trade him. If you trade him, then, fans should be really, really upset. If he doesn't want to stay, that's a whole nother discussion. But I haven't heard that come out, and I think Shohei's being very, diplomatic about it, as he should, his agent, and you know how to play that game.
Yeah, I mean, he strikes me as a very respectful dude. So I wouldn't anticipate us seeing any sort of leaks that he doesn't want to stay in L.A. But that is interesting question to ponder, because I think a lot of people just assume that he's going to be gone after this year.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to live in baseball purgatory with an organization like the Angels for the Angels for his whole career.
Well, and we want it selfishly before, because he's not going to be able to continue to do what he does, and by what he does, I mean a starting pitcher at the level that he's doing it, and a hitter at the level he's doing it for that many more years. I want to see him on a regular basis. I want to see him on the East Coast. I want to see him on the biggest stage. It's not even close. And, I memean, think about it. There are a lot of great players in baseball right now. I mean, Ronald Acuna, we talked about. Ellie De La Cruz. You got Bo Bichette with the Blue Jays is a great. But, Shohei Ohtani is in a whole other league right now. And yet, not a lot of people are able to see him, so I want that to change. Selfishly, if that means he goes to another market, fine. I just think if he gives any inkling that he's fine in L.A., Artie Moreno, I don't think has a choice. He does, but I don't think he does. But I don't know. We'll continue to talk about that over the last half hour. And when we come back, a story that we talked about, it was breaking on Friday afternoon, that, let's just say, has gotten some legs, long legs, long, fast legs, here by Monday afternoon, and now they're talking about, will this guy possibly no longer be the coach of this football program? We'll talk about that when we come back. It is the Chico Bormann Show until 1 right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back as we wind things down on this Monday afternoon. Chico Bormann Show on the Big Play Sports Network. Find us on Twitter, where we stream live each and every day, Monday through Friday, 11 until 1 at Chico Show CLE. You can also do so on YouTube. Go over there, type in the Chico Bormann Show, and hit subscribe. Coming up on tomorrow's show, he's been a slippery character of late, one Eric Casillas, but he tells me that he will be ready to go tomorrow. So remember all of those over-unders and prop bets for the Browns, and how he's not sure how to look at and think about how Deshaun Watson might play this year for the Browns and the offense. We'll get into all of that tomorrow with EK coming at noon. All right, Bohm, you may remember, I'm sure you do, Friday's show. It was late in the show, last 10 minutes or so. And there was this allegation that, Pat Fitzgerald, head coach of the Northwestern Wildcats football team, former player, former, Butkus Award winner. I mean, he was an incredible player, and he's beloved there. And essentially there was allegations that there was some widespread hazing going on with the program. And I think at the time that I was talking about it on Friday, it was more in relation to where, like, they would go on a trip to practice for like a week or so, other than just the normal place, on campus that they go to, and that is where some of this would take place. And by hazing, I mean, hazing is such a general term. Like, you just don't, it's such a broad term. You don't know what that means. I mean, that could be you have to dump an ice bucket over your head because you played, or it can be a little bit more than that. Sometimes it can be sexual in nature, which apparently now it's coming out. Some of this was. And now all of a sudden, from Friday afternoon until now, this has gotten to the point where Pat Fitzgerald, we thought, he was automatically suspended for 2 weeks. But he wasn't going to miss any practice time because, practice didn't start for a couple weeks. Wasn't going to miss any of the season, so that's it. Well, now more and more of these players, former players, are coming out and going, oh, yeah, that absolutely did happen. Now Northwestern is a very big media school. I mean, it's one of the best. You talk about Syracuse, you talk about Northwestern, Missouri's another one, our good buddy Eric Edholm, great journalism schools, and Northwestern's one of the best. I have seen now over the weekend like 3 or 4 reporters, some of national prominence, some, just covering Northwestern or whatever, that have said, yeah, it's about time people realize that Pat Fitzgerald isn't the saint that everybody makes him out to be. And I'm not saying I made him out to be a saint. I think we said on Friday that, look, I mean, every coach is doing something, but, I don't think it's – now all of a sudden they're saying that, it's a former player who spoke to ESPN on the condition of anonymity, said he told the university president, Michael Schill, about the hazing he witnessed and experienced at Northwestern, much of which he said was sexualized. Schill, in a letter sent late Saturday to the Northwestern community, has said he will now reassess the 2-week suspension for Fitzgerald that he received Friday, following a university-commissioned investigation of the hazing allegations. Now, if you remember, he also said, Fitzgerald I'm speaking of, said he had no idea this was going on, which I always feel is never the right answer. It's probably the lesser of two evils, because if you say that I had no idea what was going on, okay, well, so you didn't know that, this young man was being hazed in a certain way, and it really bothered him, it affected him. But then some people say, well, wait a minute, if you simply say I didn't know what was going on, then you're being very derelict in your duty. How can you not know as the head football coach? Now, the reality is, especially on a football program, we talked about this when Tressel, I remember talking about this a lot when Tressel had the tattoo thing and he eventually had to, leave and was forced out, that, yes, there are some occasions where a head coach, not assistants, but a head coach will not know every last thing that's going on, within the program. But something like that, like to that level of hazing, if it happened, sounds kind of ridiculous that he wouldn't know. So now all of a sudden, they're saying that Northwestern players, former Northwestern players, are saying that Fitzgerald absolutely, positively knew that this was going down, that he would give certain signals if he thought, like, if a guy was not doing well in drills, or he had skipped a drill, or he had a bad day at practice, he would give a certain clap, a certain signal above his head with clapping, and it would automatically mean that, okay, he was in line for some hazing. And again, some of this went in a sexual nature, according to some of the reports. Again, these are allegations to this point. Now, this is what you have to worry about. There are some, and there's one current player said that a former player told him that he's been on a mission, that he is going to get Fitzgerald fired somehow, some way. and no player, no program is going to have every player that is happy and totally content with how they were used as far as playing time or how they were treated. So I don't think it's like a shock that you have a player that was not happy. But when you go to this level, now you have to. Now I think it matters how many of these accounts there were. Because if it's just one guy who has been known to say, I'm taking down Fitzgerald and I'm saying that this is what happened, well, okay, that might be a little tough to believe. But now we're starting to hear older players, other players say that, yes, it did happen. And now you're starting to hear, like I said, the journalists even, like, yeah, I think people just kind of buried their head in the sand and thought, well, Pat Fitzgerald is Pat Fitzgerald and he's untouchable at Northwestern. And a lot of these journalists were like, yeah, we've heard that there's some shenanigans going on down there, going down there in Evanston. So I don't know, Bohm. I mean, this is a long-tenured coach, a highly respected coach, that he might be looking at walking papers here.
Yeah, to me, I just don't know how a coach like Fitzgerald can come back from this. And also, if true.
Yeah.
Even if they are true and he didn't know about it, to have that culture instilled in your locker room is just unexcusable. And in my mind, even though Jim Tressel knew about what happened in Tattoogate and all of that, this just seems far, far worse to me.
Sure. Yeah. It's Title IX. I mean, this is okay. Let me. I want to read further here because this is important. Again, you had the one player and who had a beef with Fitzgerald that said he's out to get him fired. Now, further down, it says that a former player told ESPN that hazing was organized and widespread in Northwestern's program, often led by a group of older players called the Shrek Gang. The group would lead a hazing activity called running. Now, I don't know if running is running, but this apparently had more than that. Usually against freshmen or younger players who had made mistakes in practice, he said. And this is where we're getting into Fitzgerald territory here. According to the former player, older players wearing masks would restrain the victim in a dark locker room and engage in sexualized behavior. Now, before anyone says it was like, I'm just going to say it because it's what's said in the article. Dry humping. Okay. Now, it's still not good, but I just want to clear that it's not like guys weren't buck naked and whatever. So the former player said, and this is important, Fitzgerald signaled for players to be added to the Shrek's list with a specific clapping motion during practice. He said he saw Fitzgerald make the motion at least 5 times since the 2020 season. Says, quote, he would be smiling menacingly at the individual who messed up while simultaneously clapping his hands over his head like I'm doing now in that specific manner, communicating that he needs to be put on the list and hazed accordingly. If that's true, he's probably gone.
Oh,
I don't
no
think
question.
There's any question about it. To take this a step further, former players sent ESPN a photo of a whiteboard headlined Shrek's List, and it listed the names of players as well as bulleted items that included naked slingshot, naked bear crawls, naked center quarterback exchange, and naked pass rush.
Yeah, Chico, this is some Law and Order SVU shit right here. That's just just brutal.
And I guess, see, there's 2 ways that I look at this. And, either way, like if this is true, and we don't know yet, so I know we got to let, the process play out. If it's true, I think he definitely has to go. But I think with Fitzgerald, what we fall into, and I think what we tend to forget is that, okay, first of all, he's very likable. I mean, he was likable. Let's face it, he was likable, and he was a popular hire because he was a stud player back in the mid-'90s.
Arguably a top 10 coach in college football, I think, widely regarded.
I don't know about widely regarded, but
he's one of the best.
Well, they've had ups and they've had some ups and downs. I don't know if I'd put him in the top. There's a lot of great coaches. So he is one of the better coaches in the Big Ten. I don't know if you'd say he's widely regarded as a top 10 guy, but anyway. So Fitzgerald basically, he was popular right out of the gate because he was a stud player. So then they hire him as coach. Well, okay, hey. What could go wrong? He loves the university. And by the way, he's had overtures. He's had offers from other schools, and you've heard him say, I love it here, which, of course, endears him even more to the fan base, and let's face it, the administration as well. The problem with this is, and this is me strictly speculating, but if we stop and think about this, Pat Fitzgerald was a great football player in part because he was an alpha male. Because he was, yes, he was athletic and he was talented, but okay, this is how we're going to do things. And I'm not saying that every alpha male supports hazing. I'm not trying to go there. But I think the idea that we can't see Fitzgerald doing this, that part needs to be revisited. Because, again, this guy is an alpha male who was all about, toughness, played the middle linebacker position, was one of the best in the country, and is all about discipline, and that's largely, if you ask somebody what is Pat Fitzgerald all about, it would be discipline, it would be, all that stuff that you probably value highly in the program. So it makes sense that he would really prioritize that stuff. It would also make sense that if it's not done to the level that he wants it done, that he would allow possibly some guys, some upperclassmen to, hey, okay, you got to teach them a lesson. Hey, I had to go through it, or I don't know. I'm just saying it's tougher when he is somebody who has been born and bred basically in your program. This is going to be, I'm curious to see how this plays out. I honestly, Bohm, when I brought it up on Friday, I sincerely thought this was going to be one of those, okay, it's a weekend news dump. He's going to serve his 2-week suspension. By the time they come back and they're practicing again and he's back as a head coach, it really won't even be mentioned. I was wrong because there are many more allegations coming out, and every time it gets sexualized, which some of these have, it's looking worse and worse.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering, guess from a side tangent, I'm wondering how this might impact the Browns because they have a couple of Northwestern players. I wonder if Greg Newsome is going to be asked about that. They also drafted another corner this year out of Northwestern. So I wonder if these guys are going to be hounded about this stuff because surely, obviously as Northwestern alum, they would have had to have known that it happened if it did happen.
Yeah, and there are others that have been interviewed, and I don't know, I can't speak to whether a guy like Greg Newsome has been contacted, but now that the investigation is going on, I'm sure that they are reaching out to former players, and some are saying, before I go any further, because I mentioned some that are saying, oh yeah, it absolutely went down. There are some that say, no, they support Coach Fitz, as they call him. And they said of the current player's account, one of the current player's account, that the former player had said, absolutely made it verbalized that he absolutely wanted to seek action to get Fitz out of the program. So, he had a beef with him. Now, was it just because of this? Was it also, playing time? God knows what else. He looked at you the wrong way. I don't know. But this thing went from Friday just being hazing, and that's why I say, hazing is a very broad term. Boom, if I said to you, damn it, you pushed the wrong button, you got to run 3 laps around the building here. Now, first of all, you tell me to go to hell, which you should do, but that could be a form of hazing. Now, many might look at, whatever, it's just, but nowadays, and especially, I was in a fraternity, you were in a fraternity in college, and, you hear some of these horror stories. Things are very cleaned up more now, things that and usually half of it's BS anyway. Bohm and I were joking, we're not going to get into the details, but when you when you're getting ready for what they call Hell Week, like you hear all these stories about, oh, you had to do this and this, and it never, ever even came. And it was just to make you, afraid and whatever. But hazing does go on. But nowadays, because they're so that's why, like Pat Fitzgerald, he knows this. Like he knows that this is serious. He also knows, and that's why I say maybe it blurred the lines, because Fitzgerald is one of those guys that he's always been an alpha male. He was as a player. And so, hey, if you're not doing it right, well, you're going to have to run laps. Well, then all of a sudden that turns into, and this is where the lines get blurred, and this is where guys lose jobs. Because then all of a sudden it goes from, okay, you've got to run laps, to now this sexualized stuff, barbaric and egregious culture, supposedly that some are alleging. Now it's taken a whole different level, and he could be gone because of it. I don't know. I can honestly tell you, when I talked about this on Friday and mentioned it, I thought it was a weekend news dump, and we'd next hear about Northwestern, because they're not supposed to be very good this year. They haven't been for a little while. They're not supposed to be very good this year. Okay, just business as usual, Pat Fitzgerald, and they're going to try to, compete and whatever. I don't even know if he's going to be around for that. So we shall see, Boom. We shall see.
Yeah, even if he is proven to have not had any knowledge of this, and maybe some of this was exaggerated or hyperbolized, I just don't know how he could come back from this in terms of the court of public opinion.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think's worse? The coach that says, I did know it went down, or the coach that says, I had no idea it was going down?
Definitely the coach that didn't know, if he actually didn't know and he means it. But
you think that's worse?
Or no, I think that's better. That would be preferred, obviously, that you didn't know that this kind of these kind of shenanigans were occurring.
Right.
But to know and admit it, I suppose there's something to be said about honesty.
Right.
And I'd prefer that over just straight up lying, because the truth would probably come out eventually.
And I think Tressel did. I think when Tressel finally it came out, and Tressel, he was pretty forthcoming. I'll be honest with you, as much as I like Gene Smith and he's done a lot for the program, I thought Gene Smith should have followed Jim Tressel's ass right out the door, because Gene Smith knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me that Gene Smith he's the athletic director, and football is the baby. You know exactly what's going on. But anyway, to get back to this, I mean, even if you say I didn't know about it, I mean, you've got to you are extremely derelict in your duty, and that's not an excuse. So it's probably the one that maybe saves your job if it comes down to it. Did you know it and just let it go on, or did you have no idea it was going on? Well, I didn't know it was going on. Okay, well, you better be much more attentive, but we're not going to fire you. Or you did know what was going on. You were okay with it. You let it happen. You let it continue to happen. We have no choice, but we have to let you go. And I think that's what investigations are for. But, I mean, he's beloved in Evanston, Illinois.
Yeah, and the clapping over his head signal thing, that's a little suspicious. That's not...
Yeah. If he goes like this, he would be looking at the player that screwed up, and then upperclassmen would know, okay, that's somebody we've got to get doing whatever. I don't know. It's odd, but...
And what you read about some of the allegations, that's only the tip of the iceberg. Some of the stuff, some of the details that are being accused of having occurred in those locker rooms are just
See, I'm fine with. I mean, there's a certain. I'm fine with, and I got to be very clear when I say this, because somebody's going to take my words the wrong way. I'm fine with rituals, right? Okay, hey, you've got to carry the pads. I mean, some people may say, "Oh, that's hazing too." Yeah, but
it is to an extent.
No, it is, and that's fine. But I'm cool with that. But what I'm surprised at is that anybody honestly thinks you can get away with doing, if this is true, doing this in this day and age. Social media, and all it takes is one disgruntled kid. Hell, One disgruntled kid doesn't get playing time, he automatically gets in the transfer portal. If this was going on and he was one of the victims of it, why wouldn't he put it out there? Like, so I'm like, there's just too many avenues for this to get out. There's no way you're going to be able to keep that under lock and key. No way.
Yeah, this is just, a lot of it is just way too far.
Yeah, and we don't know. I should say there's still an investigation in place, but I just find it amazing. Like when I said this on Friday, I thought it was okay, news dump, no big deal. It is much, much more than that, to the point where there are quite a few now saying that Pat Fitzgerald could very well lose his job. So that remains to be seen. All right, we are out of time for this Monday. Thanks to Justin Lada, who joined us, talking a little bit about the MLB draft and who the new Guardians are, and also what to expect here in the second half for the Guardians. Again, they're not back in play until Friday. Begin a road trip in Texas, followed by Pittsburgh. Tomorrow on the show, prop bets, over, under, yards, wins, touchdowns. We're doing it all with Eric Casillas, unless he finds some lame excuse. No, I'm just kidding, EK. He will join us tomorrow at noon, so looking forward to that. Don't forget, tonight at 9 o'clock, the Reflog Show. Boom. I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't say that you did a great job today. Those are your words.
Oh, well, right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I am Mike Chico Bormann. Again, Reflux Show at 9 until tomorrow at 11 a.m. For all of us here at Big Play, make it a great Monday, everybody. See ya.